My name is Peter Phillips, and I'm the director of the Institute and the Centre. Today, we're very pleased to have a visitor talking with us about conservation agriculture and its role in meeting one of the many grand challenges of the 21st century, which is feeding a rising and increasingly wealthy and hungry population in a sustainable and equitable way. The event today is partly I'll introduce our speaker in a moment, but the event today is partly organized and assisted with the Canadian Foodgrains Bank, and we have with us today Rick Block, the Saskatchewan Regional Representative, and I'd like to invite him to come up and say a few words about the food program. Foodgrains Bank, sorry.
Thank you very much, Peter. Yes, it's great to be here, and I want to welcome you all to the University of Saskatchewan. I'm actually an alum here, so it's always nice to come back. And just want to bring greetings on behalf of the Canadian Foodgrains Bank. It's an organization that perhaps you are aware of, but perhaps not. And prior to John coming up and sharing his experience in East Africa, I wanted to give a little bit of, maybe set the stage a little bit. I did also want to thank Anne from the Johnson Shoyama Graduate School. I think I have that acronym correct. As well as, she's not in the audience here, but Jackie Robin, who is from AgWest Bio, and she helped kind of guide me in a sense to try to find out what are the best connections here at the university in order to arrange this type of a seminar. The Canadian Foodgrains Bank, at its root, in its beginnings, began with prairie farmers who had surplus grain and who also saw that there was famine and starvation. At that time, in the late 70s, it was in South Asia. And they said, this isn't right. Why are we sitting on surplus grain while there are people in the world that are going hungry? And so from its beginning, it was a movement from the at a grassroots level of people that said, hey, we want to do something to help those that lack food. And so in that beginning, the folks essentially lobbied the Canadian government as well. It didn't take long, I guess, for the Canadian government to realize this was mobilizing many people, and it grew from Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and really across Canada. And now the Canadian Foodgrains Bank really exists as a non-profit organization. As you can see, kind of some of the banners, our end mission is to end global hunger. And we are, by virtue of our organization and its structure, it's a member-owned and member-directed organization. The members are churches and church-based agencies that work essentially through their relief and development organizations. And so our work is essentially as a Christian response to hunger to work with those that are in need. And hunger certainly is something that is prevalent, even though we have made strides over the last 20 years. You can look at the latest UN stats that say, we're currently, there's probably about 815 million people globally that are food insecure, and, that's always somewhat of a subjective terminology. But in this scenario, we would say 815 people that essentially have one meal or less per day, and where simply accessing food is a daily preoccupation. Our focus within the Foodgrains Bank years ago was essentially food assistance, but it's grown from there. We still do primarily, about 2/3 of our work is still focused on food assistance, which is bringing immediate food needs to those that lack access to food. And right now, currently, it's unfortunate to say, we do not see a shortage of people who are food insecure. We can think of 3 hotspots right now around South Sudan, around the countries neighboring around Syria, and the Rohingya crisis, refugee crisis, and these are unfortunately born out of conflict. But the Foodgrains Bank has always identified that upstream work is highly important, and so we work in food security and livelihoods, and that is what John will share about. We also do work specifically around nutrition and trying to ensure that mothers of young children themselves, have access to high-quality food. The Foodgrains Bank, our last fiscal year, Our program essentially encompassed $41 million, and that was a reach of just over 900,000 people in 35 countries. So to give you a sense, the Foodgrains Bank does a lot of work. We're a small organization, but because of our structure in terms of our member agencies that work in countries with local partners, we have a wide reach. And we continue, one of our initiatives that is ongoing is public engagement and education of Canadians. That's something that we take very seriously. It's important that we are informed in terms of the work that we do. We have a lot of learning tours, and there's some information at the back in terms of having Canadians go to countries where the Foodgrains Bank partners are working. But we also have one called Person to Person, and that is the idea of bringing someone who is working in one of the countries in terms of our network and having them have some time to itinerate, and that's where John comes in, and he's spending close to 3 weeks in Canada with many speaking engagements in some in Ontario already has happened, in Manitoba, now Saskatchewan, and in the next coming days he'll be in Alberta. So I'm pleased to have John Kimathi Mbae join us from Kenya, and I think Peter will introduce him further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. So we're very pleased today to have John Kimathi Mbae, a Kenyan national who's working with the Canadian Foodgrains Bank Conservation Program here. He brings 11 years of experience in socioeconomic and agricultural research with the academic training in animal production at the undergraduate level and a master's in planning at the graduate level, both in Kenya. The work he's part of a project that has received some support from the Global Affairs Canada, which is a 5-year program about scaling up conservation agriculture in East Africa. And just to put some bit of context to numbers, there's about 1.3 billion people in the world that claim to be earning part or all of their incomes out of farming. Canada is a farming-rich part of the world, but his small part of his part of this program has twice as many farmers involved as we have in Saskatchewan at this point. So it's not a small venture. So on that note, let me welcome our speaker. Just a reality check. Everybody in Regina can hear? Thumbs up, that's good. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end, but John. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation to come and share our experiences, especially for this particular project that is being supported by CFGB within 3 countries. And for us so that some few statistics here and there, in 3 countries that we are talking about, we have over 80% of our communities depending on agriculture as their main means of livelihoods within the 3 countries that we are working in. I'll be talking more about this. And this basically is not a research, it's an experience that we have run so far from the project. We are already 2 years into the program. And by the end of the year 2020, then we can be able to share more of the things that have happened with our communities and the changes that have happened there. Therefore, so far, I'll be sharing on our experiences for the last 2 years of the program. And the project, the main purpose of this project is to improve food security and sustainable livelihoods in smallholders, for smallholder household in Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania. And the main project goal is to, by the year 2020, so we have 18,000 households. These are not farmers, not individual farmers, 18,000 families, at least food secure by 2020. The program takes a form of 3 components. The first component is on productivity support for smallholder farmers. This is basically capacity building, assisting them, practical experiences, showing them how to do things on the ground. Then the second one is on networking building and strengthening that network. In East Africa and also even in Africa, as a general, we have a network of partners, members of CFGB working with different communities. Therefore, we keep this within this program. We want this network to be strengthened so that people from various diverse biodiversity regions can be able to share their experiences on conservation agriculture and other even farming activities. Then the third component is very big, strengthening policy environment. In East Africa, the three countries, we realize that we don't have friendly policies that support conservation agriculture in the three countries. Not only the three countries, most of countries in Africa. And what is happening, most governments depend on traditional extension services where they support plowing, support traditional way of farming rather than supporting conservation agriculture. Therefore, it's a huge gap. As we promote CA, we have other people or other institutions promoting the same. Therefore, we are trying as much as possible to make this harmonized so that we can have a friendly policy that can be able to support our program. Then the program budget for the three countries is 18.7 million. 14 million comes from Global Affairs Canada, then 4.7 comes from Canadian Foodgrains Bank. Within the three countries, we are working in Ethiopia, 3 regions with the 3 partners. Then in Kenya in particular, we are in 5 different regions, working with 5 partners. 5 partners, the region that you see from Central, from Western near Uganda, and also somewhere in the Eastern Lowlands. Then in Tanzania also around Victoria, and also down south in Dodoma with also 3 partners. Therefore, within the 3, we have 11 partners already working this program, targeting to work with a total of 50,000 families. Out of the 50,000 families, then by the year 2020, we want at least 18,000 of those families to be food secure. But working directly with 50,000 families, not individual farmers. We are targeting household in this program so that we can make at least a food secure household, not just one person. Then why should we promote conservation agriculture? And the main reason surrounds around issues of hunger and issues surrounding drought situation. It's good for me to point out at this point that in the 3 countries, for the 2 years that we have been in this program, there has been drought through the areas that we are working in. And it's particular in Kenya, in particular. In 2007 and before, we used to have a drought situation every 5 to 7 years, but currently it's 2 to 3 years. Every 2 to 3 years, we have a drought situation. These are issues with climate change. And we don't know what will happen even tomorrow. Maybe frequency will even increase. We are not sure about that. Then another issue on our traditional. After, in the 3 countries, what happened before? Traditionally, farmers used to practice minimum tillage. They used to have a good cover within their fields, but it changed with time where we under extension services. It's like a modern way of farming. And these equipments, good, huge equipments were brought, plows were introduced, and the extension now centered on plowing rather than minimum tillage. If I can remember my own grandparents, they did not used to plow their farm. But they used what we used to say, like a stick sharpened on one side, but having a hole within a very mulched farm, naturally, because they don't correct that. But eventually they were discouraged about this. They were told, no, you are supposed to make your farm clean. Like you correct everything, it's like refuse and burn. You make sure you burn clean. In fact, at one point, like 1980s, what happened is like extension officer would come, visit, see your farm. Then if they found refuse or like leftovers within the farm, you are taken to the chief. You are supposed to keep your farm clean, proud and very clean. And now what we are trying to do right now is to try to take our farmers back. Therefore, these farms, productivity issues, especially on soil fertility, it has declined so much. And what farmers are trying now is to revive those farms and be able to increase. Then about farm holding. Personally, I'm a farmer. I do 2 acres. I'm on the larger scale doing 2 acres, especially the region where I come from. Most farmers will do a quarter of an acre. Those small portions, what we need is a higher productivity per meter square, for example, rather than just producing a small area but getting nothing. Therefore, it's very clean. Then number 3, the last one is on who are our farmers. I use the word subsistence. Most, like 80% of farmers involved in agriculture, purposely, not for market issues. These are women. Therefore, promoting CA that can be able to increase productivity, help at least assist women to be able to have a better production within their farm. Then in the last 15 years, especially in Kenya and also Tanzania, CA has been introduced to several farmers and a trail of over 15 years. Farmers who have been benefiting from conservation. Therefore, there is already evidence which exists, like conservation agriculture is the way to go. Then because they are various, in fact, in our country we have so many soil and water conservation techniques that are being promoted. But among them, CA is very clear that it has already given that evidence. Then if I want to look at what are the things that we are promoting to our farmers. And one is on our permanent soil cover, ensuring that our soils are covered completely at all times so that farmers can minimize soil moisture loss. We can do this through mulching, or we can do this through having a cover crop, like we are using Doricos Labra, which is very nice, have a nice cover, then farmers can also benefit from that. Then another thing that we are promoting is on minimum soil disturbance. Farmers are doing it within this program. In fact, what we have done, many projects before what they use conservation agriculture project, especially at the FAO and other institutions, usually bringing in different mechanization, complicated mechanization, very expensive mechanization. And what we realize with this is that after every project ends, and you come after 3-4 years, you ask farmers why you used to be a CA farmer, yes, then they say, we used to produce so much, but why did you discard the practice? They would say, those equipments are very expensive, we can't see them. Therefore, what we have done with this project is to use, especially to show farmers, with the simple tools or simple equipments that they have, they can be able to do conservation agriculture, making holes, you can see. Then you don't have to have a complicated equipment. They can use tractors with scissor plows that can be able to do that. And this one, compared to plowing is very expensive. But this one, because the farmer doesn't, or the service provider doesn't use a lot of fuel, a lot of time, then it's cheaper, like half of the price. Therefore, farmers cut on that. Then most farmers will see this. Most farmers that we are working using cotton, then having a simple tool like reapers, subsoilers, then they can be able to make their planting lines rather than planting the whole farm. And eventually you have a field like this, and everywhere farmers are doing this. The last one, which is very difficult for smallholder farmers with half an acre, is crop rotation. Most farmers will mix their crop traditionally, but if they can do crop rotation, like the field that you see, just as you are about to harvest, you have another crop within the field. You crop rotate with a different legume. That will be nice. Other farmers are intercropping, having corn, for example, having pigeon peas within. I know pigeon pea is not the name that you use in this region, and they can be able to enjoy the benefits that comes with the crop rotating or association crops, so that one can be able to fix nitrogen, then they can benefit from that. Then I said I talked about 3 different components, and the first component about productivity support for farmers. What's going on currently? We have already training partners that we are working with, and also working with the government extension officer. We are purposely including government extension so that we can avoid different messages going out there. Once they are trained, they are also be able to pass the same message. Then training of farmers. So far, we have managed to train over 14,000 farmers, and already 10,248 farmers are already practicing on their own field. Then we are strengthening savings groups within the community. This is purposely to target women who most of the times they are faced with challenges of even assessing capital for production services. Another one is on mechanization too, ensuring that the tools that we provide are tools which are friendly to both gender, not just heavy that cannot be used by the other gender. Then gender and CA, there is an issue of in making sure women also participate in decision making. If you look at numbers of the farmers that we are reaching out, they can sometimes lie. For example, out of 14,000 farmers, we have 7,000 women, 6,000 men. Then you say, oh, this program is okay. But it's not okay. Traditionally, in our communities, who are the people who make decisions, especially within the farm? Like, for example, women will come for a training, for example. Then they go back home. For them to do anything on the farm, they need to get permission from their husband. They don't make decisions where to do what to grow, but they get that direction from their women. Therefore, within this project, we are seeing it as an opportunity so that women, once, because they are, most of them within trainings, they are usually the majority. They come for the training, they go back home. Definitely, they will be given the worst part of the farm to do CA. You can do your training, that technology somewhere there, the worst part of the farm. But what we expect at the end of the season, it's a good crop. Like the last 2 seasons, the 2 years that I'm talking about, drought, 2 years. But drought, as you see later in my presentation, farmers are producing, especially the ones doing conservation agriculture. And what happened now, I have one family that I visited. The husband came in, he is a motorbike. There is what we call motorbike business, people ferrying people from one place to another. He is never home. He never participates in agriculture. The lady came home, then she was given a very bad place you can do it here, out of 2 acres, very small, 1/8 out of the 2 acres. She was very small. Then the husband came back home after 3 months. Then the husband realized the other part of the farm, other than the 1/8, the 1/8 is doing very fine. The other part of the farm is very poor. Then she was like, didn't you do everything on the whole farm? Well, you said that you should just work on this small part. Then the husband from that I told the lady immediately. In fact, we were there. Then said, now even next season you can decide what to do with the rest of the farm. These are some of the things that we want to see happening. And another issue is on crop diversity, not just doing corn, because in Kenya most and also Tanzania, if you don't have corn, you are food insecure. Therefore, people will just go for corn. But for this program, purposely we are trying to promote diversity, not just growing one crop. Diversity also for risk issues, and also because most of ones other than corn, other crops like beans, men don't associate themselves with beans. But if you introduce beans, now you are sure that you are empowering the lady of the house, because she can be able to put something on the table. Then on what we have done so far, one is the issue of information access, extension information access. They assess differently. Most of the time, most people will communicate direct, or even you are calling, you call the husband, you don't call the lady of the house. If it's an SMS, extension message, you send to the man, but not the lady of the house. This is an issue, but on this project, what we are trying to do is, right now, like over 90% of in the 3 countries, most people have mobile phones. Therefore, instead of sending that message just to one person, you do it for both. Make sure they get the same message so that we can be able to create equity. Another issue is on savings group. I said there are more women. Men don't want to associate with themselves with a savings group where people are saving just $0.5 of a dollar, like 50 cents per week. For them, they want big money. But these groups where farmers are saving very little, $0.5 of a dollar, 50 cents per week, women more, you will find that you see the numbers. Out of 8,700, you see almost 7,000, they are women within the groups that we are working with. And within these groups, what we are doing, because this is an agricultural project, the same group members also save some few coins purposely to assess seed. at the beginning of the season, because before they were not assessing even a clean seed, certified seed. Therefore, it's like a variation to the same group. Another one is on traditional vegetables. Traditional vegetables and gardening, small kitchen garden. People usually avoid them, but they make a huge impact. This is where people get food daily, like vegetables, for nutrition purpose. Therefore, within this program, we are also even targeting those small gardens, having a CA farm, as small as it is, makes a big impact. That family will never go hungry because they don't have a vegetable to eat.